Well, we're real pleased. Obviously, I'm going to let Mike address that whenever he's ready to address who and what, and, what roles are going to play. I know he got off to a little bit of a head start the other day, but very pleased with what he's put together. It seems like, we've got a lot of experience, back there, and I think overall he's really pleased with how it's all come together.
Mike said he wants to keep the terminology the same to help kind of learning Kellen's offense and have Kellen do the play calling. How advantageous do you think that is to have some of that stability on offense despite all the turnover?
Well, I think it just shows speaks to the coach Mike is. I mean, there we've got a very experienced, offense with most of our starters back, if not all of them. And, they certainly, know the language. And, I think it's a big deal for our players to not have to start over with the language. I still think we're going to get a big benefit from Mike and his offensive mind in terms of, putting concepts to his language. So I just think it's a big deal. He thought it was a big deal for, our players not to have to relearn the language, and I think that's a huge plus.
Jason taking the offensive coordinator job at the Giants, does that surprise you at all?
Not at all. I mean, Jason's a football guy. He wants to go coach, and, he's great offensive mind. They got a good one in Coach Garrett, in my mind, and certainly, he's got some good tools to work with up there. Certainly, we've seen him between the quarterback and the running back, and they got some good receivers up there. So he's got a lot. Looks like he's going to have a lot to work with, and we're going to get to see him twice a year.
Did you think that was a possibility?
Absolutely. He's from New Jersey, and I know what the organization thinks of him. He was through there as a quarterback, and it's just, always wish Jason nothing but the best. He's nothing but a class act here, and know that he'll certainly help the Giants get on that road to where they want to go as well.
When asked about the defense, Mike said he's looking more about the players than the scheme. He said, just let's get some good football players in here and we'll do the scheme around it. Is that a big change in philosophy for what has been here?
To some degree it is, yeah. As you well know, Rod was very, he knew what he wanted in his defense and knew the type of players he wanted. And so, that there is some degree of flexibility there that, Rod was also really successful. We had a lot of good defenses while Rod was here, and they all played the way you want football played. They played hard. They hustled to the ball, and but at the same time, as Mike said, we want to find good football players and then put them in the best places to make plays.
When you're piecing together the ingredients of a defensive roster, you need to at least have a pretty good idea of what you're going to be making with those ingredients.
Yeah, we'll have a good feel for that. I mean, obviously, we've got the core of our football team that we'll take a long, hard look at, and then as we start to look at the draft and who we're going to re-sign and those type of things, then it'll come together. But I do think being a multiple defense and being able to do a lot of things as we're starting to see around the league, can be problematic for the opposing teams, coordinators and quarterbacks when they're seeing different looks. So, I think to some degree, we'll evolve into that type of defense. So we certainly want to give the other team difficulty, and at the same time, I think one of the things that we certainly got to continue to improve upon is, turning the ball over. So certainly I know that's a goal for this staff, for Mike, if you will, and they want to, certainly that's a big part of it for them, and certainly that resonated well with Jerry and myself.
It's quote-unquote reset.
Well, it's already, it's been urgent for us. We want to certainly get that done, and that's our number one priority as we go into the off season, is to get his contract, hopefully find some resolution to it and get that done.
You talked about last offseason a lot at this time was taking the next step. Even though you have all these free agents, you have a new coaching staff. Is that still the goal? Is it realistic?
Absolutely, and I think we've got a good team that's in its prime. We've got a good mixture of players, and part of the reason why Jerry and I were really set on finding not only a coach with experience, but a coach that had real success in the playoffs and had played in big games, and that was very important that we find that guy, because we do believe this team can certainly had that type of success.
Does putting a franchise tag on a quarterback change a lot of what you would want to do in free agency? Like, I mean, does it limit you if you have that tag?
No,
That's in there?
no. We can work around that. Anything else?
Big picture wise, how did you think the first year of being able to review pass interference went for the league?
You know, that's something we're getting ready to spend a lot of time on in the competition committee. We're starting here in a couple weeks with our meetings up in New York. You know, as far as I was concerned, you know, you certainly saw where it had its challenges. You know, I think we worked around it for the most part. I would say I was pleased. I think the fewer calls, you know, that, you know, reverse. I'm not a big fan of flags on the field unless it's obvious, and I'm also, you know, was content that not many of those calls were reversed, and we didn't have a lot of flags put on plays. So we'll just have to see, really, you know, how everyone took it in, how our coaches took it in, what, you know, and then in general, what our league thinks as a whole should be next steps with that.
Do you have any update on Leighton Vander Esch? I know he had that neck procedure.
It went well, and I feel really good about it. Feel really good about him making a full recovery and being ready to participate in everything.
You touched on this a minute ago, but, you know, this being the first big event of draft season, do y'all have a handle on how Mike and his staff will kind of work with Will and what changes need to be made in terms of what they're looking for? And I guess, how does that process really work as you get
Well,
into
I think Mike
season?
said it best. One of the great things there is he just wants to take, you know, let's take players that can make plays, and then we'll scheme around those type of players and get them the ball and on the offensive side of the ball, and put great players in positions to make plays on the defensive side of the ball. So we've already had some great visits between Will, Mike, myself, Jerry, and you know, we'll continue to start to obviously, you know, as we move forward, we'll get everybody mixing and matching and having great conversations about what we want to be as a football team.
Do you plan to meet with Dak or Marty's agent here in Mobile?
I don't necessarily see that right now. I mean, if I happen to run into them, then more than happy to visit with them. Know them both well.
Yeah.